Alright, I wanted to create a quick video review of my experience with Byrom's Taxidermy in Fort Worth. Coy Byrom is the taxidermist. Um, so here are some pictures of the mouflon exotic sheep that I harvested in Texas. I was pretty heartbroken when I picked up the sheep. It's a hunt that I'll remember for the rest of my life. I stalked this thing for 8 hours on state land down in Del Rio, Texas. And then I actually harvested one with a bow and arrow, which was a huge accomplishment. And it's a good thing I do have some really great pictures because the sheep ended up in the trash, literally, after Byrom's Taxidermy completely butchered it. So I'll be honest with you, when Coy Byrom told me he could get it done in 2 to 3 months, I was a little surprised and skeptical. I wish I would have just stopped right there, but he assured me that he has 60 years of experience and a lot of experience raising mouflon sheep. So I went with him because he had pretty good reviews on Google and this fit my timeline well. So I gave him more than enough time. I actually picked it up more than 3 months later. And so this is a picture of my mouflon in the field. I'll show you another picture of my mouflon in the field. It was a great sheep. Pretty mature, nice mass on the horns, good size. And this is what it looked like when I picked it up. So really upsetting. You know, it almost looks like it was the first taxidermy job he'd ever done, and maybe he had never even seen what a mouflon sheep looked like before in real life. So he said that I rushed him, and it was my fault that the quality was horrendous. Then he turned the insults on me and said that I was being a very picky engineer, and the only thing visibly wrong with it was that the eyes were crooked. And that was the one thing he could fix. But looking at this, I see much more wrong, and I pointed that out to him. Yeah, so crooked eyes, ears, the horns are mounted crooked, and they're mounted vertical instead of at an angle backwards. The cape is crooked. If you look there, you can see this is that white patch of fur under the chin is not centered. There's also, you know, the mouth is crooked, very crooked, and painted very black, which is unnatural. There's a bald spot on the chin, a visible staple under the ear that I'll show you in pictures. Here you can see here, yeah, the horns are just kind of shooting out of the head straight up rather than going back at an angle. Really doesn't look natural, really looks nothing like the animal that I harvested, which is the whole point of getting taxidermy done in the first place. Here's that bald spot I mentioned on the chin, and you know, this huge black mouth, which you really don't even see the lips of the sheep that I brought in. So a little bit more here. You can see he's cross-eyed. You got one eyeball looking straight up, very unnatural. You can see, I think he probably just used a plug that he had lying around because the neck isn't nearly as thick as the neck on the actual animal. And I think that's probably why the white spot under the chin is off center as well. Now on top of all of this, what really, I threw this in the trash, and two reasons. One is it's kind of embarrassing to put this animal on the wall and brag to your friends about it. It looks like absolute shit. And then two, because it was rotten. It wasn't tanned properly. And as you can see in this picture here, you see those little specks in the fur, and what that is rotten carcass of the animal. And so when I picked this thing up, the cape was not dry. The whole mount smelled exactly like a dead and rotting animal. So not only does it look like roadkill, but it smells like roadkill too. And you know, my wife was worried that having this head in the house, you know, it's going to get infected. Bugs would start crawling out of the fur, and you know what? I think she's right. So Coy was incredibly defensive. Coy with Byrom's Taxidermy in Fort Worth. And after swearing at me, he said he wouldn't fix anything but the eyes. He told me I was unreasonable and I was asking for the impossible. To have a symmetrical animal, I didn't think that was impossible. So I paid $600 for this mount. There's no refund at all. And I talked to a number of other taxidermists, and I would have paid them double to have them help me fix this taxidermy so I could put this beautiful animal that I harvested on the wall. And Unfortunately, they said it was in disrepair. All of them profusely apologized for my experience and were shocked and said that it was an embarrassment to taxidermists everywhere. I agree with them on that. You can see here there's just this matted fur on top of the head, and there's a string sticking out too where he tied the hide together. You can't really see it in this picture, but there's also a visible screw where the horn was mounted. As you can see in this picture, the ear, not only was it crooked, but there's an exposed piece of plaster or plastic right there at the tip of the ear, which was colored pink. What other pictures do I have? Yeah, that one just shows how the horns are mounted vertically instead of an angle backwards. But really, Coy is disrespectful. He's unapologetic, and he wouldn't give me any money back. I had to throw my prized animal in the trash. You know what? He's got a lot of experience, 60 years, but I think it's time for him to retire. So do yourself a favor. Do not work with him, and tell everyone you know in the Fort Worth area that this guy's a joke when it comes to taxidermy. Bring it to a professional. Bring it to someone that has some pride in their work, some craftsmanship. I'm beyond disgusted. Even though this was the hunt of a lifetime that I'll remember, I have no taxidermy for the wall. So really unfortunate. I hope you don't go through the same thing.